Welcome everyone to our webinar series, our Hot Topics webinar series. We're excited to present today the topic on housing options, which I know is a hot topic always, no pun intended. We have Mary Petrakos, who is going to share some information about family care. And we have Kristen Eves, who's going to talk a little bit about some non-certified and non-traditional types of housing options. So we're excited for you to be here, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Alan, next slide.
We're going to begin our meeting today with our mission, vision, and core values, as we do with every meeting and webinar, person-centered services. Our mission is to connect people to the care, support, and opportunities that maximize their quality of life. Our vision, a community where all people lead fulfilling lives, and our core values, people, integrity, and trust.
Before we get started, we just want to introduce ourselves. So I'm Jason Blackwell. I'm the Regional Director of Care Coordination for the East. We have Ellen Vaneski, who's the Senior Manager of Community Relations, and Jennifer Clark, who's the Manager of Provider Relations. We'll be your hosts for today. And presenting, as I mentioned earlier, Kristen Eves. She's the Social Determinants of Health Specialist here at Person-Centered Services, and Mary Petrakos is the Associate Vice President at People Inc. So we're excited to get started. Here today's agenda, introductions, the purpose, housing options, and we'll hopefully have a little bit of time for Q&A. So today's purpose, we want to provide a realistic view of available housing options. We know that traditionally, when people think about housing options for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, we automatically think about group homes, supportive apartments, supervised apartments. We want to provide a realistic viewpoint about those types of services and kind of the newer trends around housing to ensure that we all understand what is available. While those options are still technically provided, they're difficult to get into. So we felt that we needed to be just honest and have a transparent discussion about what are the housing options that most people will be likely to be able to get into. So available housing resources, the process for obtaining housing options, and some other resources. So I'm going to turn it over right now to Kristen Eves to talk a little bit about certified and non-certified options.
Yep, I just want to mention, please type in any questions that you have during the presentation, and we'll try to get to all of them at the end. We'll go for about 40 minutes, and we'll try to get to all the questions at the end.
So similar to like what Jason was saying, certified housing options seem to be a little bit more difficult to get into, even if you're presented as an emergent need. And identifying different supports and things out in the community that associate with non-certified housings also kind of lead that in the future, if you wanted certified housing, you could have some supports in place to make you a little bit more appealing to the committee that is choosing. So starting off with non-certified housing, we want to just kind of discuss that people with IDD also have the same options that we have in the community. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. We do understand that sometimes people can live completely independently, and some people need supports in place in order to thrive within the community. It's controlled by the person and not a provider. So once again, if anybody is applying for an apartment or anything, it would be typical for anybody to have to pay application fees, go and visit the place, set up a moving company and stuff like that. And of course, the care coordinator is going to be there along the way to assist with coming up with a good goal as to how these steps and help kind of guide the way, in a sense. And it's based on what the person can afford and based on the person's needs, interests, and preferences. So where they want to live, who they want to live with, different things like that. You can go to the next slide. So what options are available? Again, it's very common with the same options that are available for you and I if we were to be looking for a place. You can live with family, and ways that OPWDD can assist with people to live with their families for longer periods of time is by getting an EMOD or a modification done to their home to keep them able to access their home fully. Potentially, if they're living with their family, they would be eligible for family reimbursement respite services, also aid services from the county. Individuals can also rent an apartment, either by themselves or with other people, share housing, and own a home or a condo. We do have quite a few people that go into home ownership, and I go into kind of funding sources in the future, but kind of starting early is the key goal when wanting to kind of approach these things, developing a good realistic goal with your care coordinator, maybe open an Able Now account, and different ways to kind of save up for where your true goal is of where you want to be. You can go to the next slide. One thing that is kind of becoming more and more popular is OPWDD. We have apartment complexes that we have set aside for individuals with developmental disabilities. So it's a traditional apartment complex. There right now is about 197 set aside units funded through Region 1. Again, this is something that the individual would have to pay for traditionally, like a normal apartment for anybody, but these are guaranteed set aside for people in the IDD community. So this is something that can also be, you can utilize a housing subsidy, supportive services through self-direction, and then have community rehabilitation and different supports come in within the house. There is also a non-certified supportive apartment with tenant preference. So basically this is just opening up for people with IDD in the community to kind of have options. And then if you go to the next slide, I can kind of further explain. Right now,
And
out of the—
Kristen, if I can just jump in, you know, we're sharing a lot of information, and of course, the care coordinator would be able to support anyone who is pursuing any of these options. So we don't want you to get overwhelmed with the amount of information being shared, but we did want to provide kind of an overview of all the options. But the care coordinator would be the person helping you navigate this system.
Yes, yes. So out of those 197 housings, the majority of them are within the Niagara and Erie County and Monroe counties. They are currently majorly utilized by individuals with IDD. So it doesn't mean that there's 197 available out there, but they are coming across all counties, and there are more hopefully in the works to become more available to people. We'll go to the next slide. So like I said, we can talk about traditional services. So this is an individual that doesn't utilize self-direction services. So when living in the community, there are housing subsidies that could be accessed, transition subsidies only for one time within a person's life, or during a different circumstance under an emergency. Again, the care coordinator would be able to navigate that for you. It's not guaranteed, but it's something that we can apply for. Community rehabilitation services through an agency is also a great way to have assistance within your home or into the community. If you live with the family, again, the family reimbursement respite, or starting an Able Now account for larger purchases. So if somebody wants to save for a couch or a bed or larger items, an Able Now account is really kind of the way to go. And then if you own your own home, an Able Now account would really kind of set stone. It would prevent you from losing Medicaid and different things like that to save for larger housing items, because everybody knows owning a home is quite expensive. And then if somebody were to self-direct their services, it does kind of open up a little bit more options. Again, there's the housing subsidies and the transition stipends. You can still get community rehabilitation. This one could be through agency or self-hired staff. And it looks like I put that in there twice, so please ignore that, I'm sorry. You can get a paid neighbor, so if you feel like you need support during the nighttime, just kind of having that relief to call somebody. Lived-in caregivers also funded through self-direction. And then also the other than personal goods and services and individual directed goods and services section is very important. This allows you to have reimbursements for different items within your home. So there might be some reimbursement to like utilities, phone bill, internet bill, items like that. And depending if the individual lives by themselves or with other people, it would be divvied up on the amount received. But that also helps in support to living on your own.
Yeah. So, you know, the goal of those housing supports is to ensure that anyone living in the community or in their own home or whatever, that they have the support, you know, to be successful in doing so. And that's kind of the shift that OPWDD and that we're experiencing as a state and as a system, is that it's been determined, and there's a lot of successful examples of people being able to live outside of group home settings and being successful. So, you know, as the system continues to build, you know, we learn a little bit more, and these different types of services are implemented to be able to wrap, you know, supports around people, again, to be able for them to be comfortable, confident, and be able to meet their needs, you know, living on their own. So it's a you know, it's a way of thinking. It's a mindset shift a little bit, but again, there's lots of examples, and your care coordinator can help you, again, navigate those, answer any questions that you may have around, you know, gosh, you know, what does this mean? You know, what does, you know, housing subsidy mean? You know, we'll be able to answer all that. But, you know, there are ways for folks to be able to independently to live independently and have a high quality of life.
And may I add, we also put 2 assessments or 2 tools that you could use with your care coordinator to determine, and I'm sorry, Kristen, if you had already planned on mentioning this, in the handout section of this webinar, that you can go through with your care coordinator to determine what sorts of needs your loved one has that they will need to help support them living independently, or maybe not independently, living with you, but to help maintain their needs so that they don't need to live in a certified setting.
Okay, yeah, so that will get mentioned later on in the slides. So we will go over that very soon after Mary's presentation as well. So for certified housing, it is regulated by OPWDD, it is emergent need people, very individualized, it's a prescriptive model, and it's move away from certified sites. So we're trying to move away from certified sites by keeping people independent in their in the community, in the least restrictive, safest place for the individual. We do understand that some individuals very much so require certified sightings, but we do have a numerous amount of people living successfully in the community with the right supports, and the care coordinator basically planning out plan A all the way down to Z, exactly how it's going to be done. Financials are looked into place and everything along those lines. So for certified sites, we do have a system where you would contact your care coordinator and they would submit a certified residential opportunity. It would place you in options for IRAs, is typically called IRA, so individual residential alternatives. Supervised apartments, supportive apartments, and family care. So an IRA is the typical 24/7 staffed on site, taking your loved one to medical appointments and activities, the whole 9. Supervised and supportive apartments offer a little bit less supervision than the 24-hour IRA care, but still have some staff on site to kind of guide them. And I'm not going to touch base on family care because that's what Mary's here for. So she'll be presenting shortly. And then below, I did want to point out that there's still options for immediate care facilities or other certified sites such as nursing homes and assisted livings. They do require you to lose like person-centered services for care coordination, but those options, if needed, if that's really the direction that you need to go with your loved one, they have care coordination and all the services on site. That is why you would lose us. So even though you are transitioning from us and you don't want to, they do have their own staff on site that would provide a similar service to ours, and that is why you would lose care coordination.
And Mary, just before you go, I just want to comment on family care. So, we've been talking a lot about non-certified sites, but the reality is that family care is a certified setting. But what Mary has enlightened us to, and what we know is that family care is underutilized. So we've asked Mary to speak about her specific family care program, understanding that there are lots of programs throughout the state, but because this program, family care, is underutilized, we felt it was important for it to be shared as another option, because it's and Mary will go into this, she's a subject matter expert, but it is an underutilized housing situation or program. So I just wanted to clarify that. Mary, you're muted. Yeah, see, you're not muted.
Do we want to
we
have
had
a
we ran into this issue earlier with Mary's audio, and then you came back after you logged off, Mary. So if you want, we could try to queue up the short video if you want to log off, and then try to log back on, and then we can kind of get to some questions that way. So in the meantime, I am going to try to switch over to this video that she wanted to share. And if you just bear with us here, what I'd like you to do is turn your volume up. I'm going to try to sync this up. And I'm going to try to play this video and have the audio is going to be a little bit separated, but we're going to do our best here. So we might have to turn your audio up. And there is subtitles as well. Oops, stand by.
Day that I got the call about the program, everything just went off my shoulders, and I'm so happy.
Well, I know that we're a genuine family because people see me and him, and if they don't see him, it's like, well, where's your son?
This program has transformed my life.
Ben, and actually, when he came to us, unfortunately, his mother passed away. He came here, really just set up that we could do it for a while, but it was really not in our capability for the long haul.
When we met the family that he potentially be placed with, we knew it was a right fit that day. You could just sense the care and thoughtfulness and love that she was going to bring to Ben, which we knew he needed.
First thing, brush my teeth, floss, wash up, get dressed, get ready for school.
When we visit with him or take him out, he tells us about his adventures, what he does every day. We're getting normal reports from the school on a regular basis, and looking forward to his graduation next month.
What's your favorite thing you like to do? Like to work out? You like to go to the gym? Yeah, I like to go to the gym, work out. I met Damone in the program. I think it changed him a lot. He's more aware of himself and who he is. So you know how to separate your clothes and take them to the laundry and put them in? Who does that? I do. What do you do? Put them in the washing machine. And after they do finish washing, we do put them in the dryer.
I've seen Julia blossom. This program has transformed my life, and I would say making me more joyful, bringing an experience of
laughter and kindness and joy is just what comes to my mind because Julia is so cheerful. Now she's just so free and open, and we go out in the community and we go to the pet store. She likes taking nature walks and going to the library. What do you like that we do together? We take the pictures together. Is that fun? Tell people who are thinking about coming to Provider that it's a very rewarding experience, opening your home and sharing your family and your love and your life with them. So you enjoy being here with me? Yeah. How it make you feel? It makes you feel happy. We really enjoy one another, right? Yeah, we do.
All right, so Mary, do we have your audio back?
I think so.
Okay, great. Go ahead and,
So I'm so happy that everyone got to see the video, and there is a link in the PowerPoint, and hopefully if you want, you can go to YouTube and take a look at the video on your own, because I know it was a little bit difficult to hear. But those are actual people who live in family care and family care providers. And I feel like the video can do more than anything I could say to show you the heart of family care. Next slide. So Perfect Fit is the name of People Incorporated's family care program. A few years back, we had the opportunity with a grant to do some research into what makes family care more attractive to families, more attractive to people that receive services. And we did focus groups with parents and people who lived in family care and self-advocates and professionals in the field. And one of the things that we learned is very little is known about family care across New York State, which is unfortunate because it's such a wonderful program. So our Perfect Fit program provides a safe, natural, family-oriented place for people to live where they receive the care and support they need, but also are granted the independence to explore their own interests. Next slide. Family care has been around a long time. New York State began to certify people to become family care providers in the mid-70s. And it was kind of based on that idea of people opening their homes to adults and children who had developmental disabilities and certainly should not be living in an institution, maybe didn't want to do group homes. And honest to God, in those days, there weren't the number of group homes that we have today. So the choices were extremely limited for families. They either, early on were faced with a decision to either institutionalize their family member or care for them at home. So family care was around early in the game. And in the mid 80s, the state allowed voluntary agencies like People Inc. to sponsor family care homes. And so we started doing that in 1986. And family care exists, both state operated and voluntary operated across New York State. Next slide. So you could see the basic model in the video is that we certify people to become family care providers. They open their home to a person who has a developmental disability, and that person lives with them. And we say that almost anybody can become a perfect fit provider as long as their heart's in the right place. So we have retired people, we have married people, we have single people, we have people who have kids. It can also be a family member. So some families may have, a cousin or a close family friend that would like to be certified as a family care provider, and we can do that and kind of build it around the needs of the person who needs a place to live. So anybody but a parent. It can even be a favorite staff. One of the things that is lovely and wonderful about family care is that, for example, if somebody lived at home with parents who are aging and they're going to need a place to live, moving into family care is so much more like the course of their life than living in an IRA or an ICF, for example, where they're in a group with other people and staff are coming in and out. It really is more like family living. Another thing that we saw early on in the family care program was that people who had lived in an institution and didn't have very much family contact, when they came out of the institution and moved into family care, it was one of the first times that they had to experience somebody loving them and living in that kind of loving environment. Family care providers do not take the place of natural family, but they augment the support that a person's natural family gives. So they're kind of taking care of the day-to-day, helping people with washing, dressing, getting to work, and that kind of thing. And the family can just enjoy their relationship with the person. Next slide, please. So a family care provider might live in an apartment, a duplex, single family homes. We have rural settings, we have suburban settings, and we have urban settings. So almost anywhere we can work on certifying that living arrangement. So if it's somebody's home, there's a lot of specifications for safety in the home. We do an inspection, and then the person has the opportunity to fix anything that would prevent them from being certified. And even if they're renting, as long as the landlord is willing to work with us, they can be certified while they rent. And we do have providers that very successfully do that. Next slide. So, you know, when we went around the state and we did focus groups, when we did the groups with families and parents, their most important thing that they kept mentioning over and over again was the safety of their family members. They want their family members to be safe and secure. When we met with the self-advocates, they were looking for independence and the opportunity to pursue their dreams. So speaking to the parents in the audience today, I want you to know what we do to make sure that people are safe and well cared for. The first thing is that we do the same kind of background checks and reference checks that someone that is working in the field of developmental disabilities has to have. Then we do 40 hours of training with the provider, and it includes training them on how to administer medications, CPR, and first aid. We do the home inspections and corrections, and we do recertification every 1, 2, or 3 years. Next step. So now let's talk about perfect fit for people. The most important thing in all the years that I've worked in family care, and it's a lot, finding the right match is the key. So if you think about that, this is not a temporary thing like foster care, but it is designed to be a long-term placement, and the family care providers know that when they come into it. We need to make sure that there's going to be a good match between the person and the provider. So if the provider is kind of a stay-at-home sort of person and doesn't want to do things, we are not going to match them with somebody that wants to go for a fish fry every Friday night and go to the movies on the weekend and go dancing. So we're really careful about that. Both the family and the person who's going to move in have the opportunity to meet the potential provider and their family. We do background checks on anybody that lives in the house, even if they're not the certified provider. If their husband is not going to be a certified co-provider, we do the same background checks on him. So we're looking for compatibility and the potential for a happy life together. And it works, because we have people who have lived with their family care provider for 20 or 30 years. So if you're looking for stability and for the person to not have turnover and different staff coming in, this could be a program that would be really workable for you and your family member. I always say some of our relationships in family care last longer than a lot of marriages. So what do people gain when they move into family care? It's being a welcome member of a family's home. It's having the space and privacy to be themselves and support whenever they need it. They get to appreciate the warmth of friendship and, family care providers and their extended families and their friends supplement the family and friends that the person already has in their natural family. They enjoy doing things that they love and find new interests. There's added opportunity to build close relationships and be an active and involved member of their community. Next slide. So a typical day in family care is kind of like a typical day in everybody's household. Everybody gets up in the morning and they're rushing to get out the door. Assistance is given to the person by the provider wherever they need extra help. Most of the time, somebody that lives in a family care home attends a day program or has a job. The provider often has a job too. Family care cannot be the only source of income for a family care provider. So when people talk about worry that the person is only in it for the money, not likely. They usually
We've lost your audio there, Mary. I'm sorry to jump in. It just went out. So I'm going to have Jen, do you want to jump in and read the slides? Mary, maybe you can hop out and back in again, because that seems to get your audio going again.
Sure, absolutely. Mary was mentioning that a typical day for an individual living in family care is similar to any household. It's helping an individual, assisting with assistance given to the person by the provider wherever they might need extra help. So it's very individualized depending on what that person might need. So if a person needs to attend a day program or have a job, it's going to be helping them with their needs of getting to and from that day program or their job. The provider also often has a job themselves, so they are going to plan for their own needs along with the individual who's living with them as well. Everyone's sharing meals. They do things they enjoy together, and they are going to share those household tasks just like any other, just like any typical household that you would have. In terms of recreation, there you go. I just read the one slide.
Okay, so we try to support people and their dreams through valued outcomes. We want them to enjoy their neighborhood, and we want them to learn new things and be engaged. And we also ask the family care providers to help them to maintain their relationships with family and friends. So family and friends are always welcome because that's the person's house, and just like it's the provider's house. And so they're free to have guests whoever they want. Next slide. We've had a lot of great success stories. We had one person who, her mom really wanted her to lose weight, and she and the provider started going to a gym and eating healthy together, and she lost over 100 pounds. We've seen people who don't have great communication skills develop much improved verbal skills. We've seen people that are engaged in the community. We've seen where they go to church with the provider, and like the provider's church, they don't have to go, but end up being, somebody that hands out the pamphlets to people as they come into church. They have jobs like that and roles. They also tend to develop sibling-like bonds with others in the home. I know you saw Julia earlier, and you probably noticed in the video there was a little girl. Well, Julie, that's the provider's granddaughter. And when Julia was living there, that little girl and her mom, the provider's daughter, moved in while the provider's daughter was pregnant, and she was involved all those years of watching that baby grow up. And she used to say, "This is Julia's baby." So there's lots of things that come up in life that they just have an opportunity for that they wouldn't have in other settings. And we've seen increased levels of independence and confidence, and I just, lots of other things. Next slide. So the video really is the family care story that's told by the experts. And the link is here. And I hope that you will take some time to take a look at it. And I think it's on to Kristen, eh?
Yep. And just
so
before you
much,
go,
Mary.
I did put the link in the chat, so to the video in the chat. So feel free to grab it out of there and cut and paste it into your browser. Are we distributing this slide deck as well? We're making the slide deck available, so you'll have access to it there as well.
Thanks, Mary. So just to kind of let everybody know, family care you can have care coordination with as well. It is considered a certified site, correct, Mary? But you can still have care coordination, so you'll also have your care coordinator help guide along with those services as well. So roles and responsibilities when trying to figure out housing options for your loved one. The care coordinator can help identify available options, educate the individual and support on the process. So if they want to live independent, but what obstacles do they have to overcome in order to live independent successfully in the community, or educate them about when they're making a choice to live in an IRA or even move out of an IRA to live in the community. That's one other thing that we haven't really mentioned too much. Establish a clear plan. So the care coordinator will walk through what services need to be in place, financials, so on and so forth, and assist with any paperwork and assessments as needed. Next slide. And then we wanted to kind of explain that it's not just the care coordinator's responsibility. So living in the community is very much so similar to how taking the steps if you and I were to live in the community, or even when you're living in an IRA. The individual's responsible to, or the support circle is responsible to communicate the needs. So if you want to live in the community, earlier the communication, the better. Identify available options. So it is not solely the care coordinator's responsibility to be looking for apartments, but the individual as well. Identifying the housing, understanding that there is a process to secure the housing. Right now, it could take a couple of months, getting things in process. And then the paperwork and necessary assessments that are required. For certified housing, you might have to go to the doctor. You might have to pay for an application fee. Things like that are solely responsible under the individual and the caretaker with the guidance of care coordination. And then we just wanted to kind of discuss like being proactive. So part of my role is to discuss with care coordinators to bring back information to you guys. So if a care coordinator even feels like you guys are expressing interest to them and they kind of feel like they hit a wall on how to present things to you, they can discuss with me and we can come up with a clear goal and game plan for you. Sooner you talk to your care coordinator, the better. So if you have a child that is 18 and you want them to move out by 25, developing kind of a clear goal as to where you want them, where you see them, and how you see them in the community. The two worksheets that Jen Clark discussed, they should also be available to you to open. But they kind of lay out a clear picture, and the care coordinator can walk through with you or the individual, kind of explaining, where do you want to be? Do you want to live independently? What are your financials? Where the realistic goal is. So if you have an individual that does not drive and cannot access things easily, but could if they were in walking distance to a pharmacy, you're not going to move them out to the middle of a cornfield. So obviously having clear discussion as goals of where you want to live, and then the realistic options that are available to you to help you be most successful in the community or in an IRA certified setting or whatever, or in the housing options with family care, things like that. What resources are in place. We're going to discuss what resources need to be established. What does the financial picture look like, and what is important to the person, the location, the community, healthcare needs, items like that.
Yeah. And you know, Kristen shared kind of, you know, what the, you know, how it would be helpful for people to determine where they want to live. But, you know, it's very important for us to understand that the person who is living in the environment, who is choosing the housing option or will be living there, has say. So, you know, we want to make sure that, you know, every opportunity or every avenue that we can use to ensure that their ideals, their wants and desires are met is important. We know that obviously there's a lot of caregivers that are supportive, but we want to make sure that the individual who is actually going to be experiencing the housing living situation has as much say as possible to help determine success and help that person feel as if, you know, they're living in the environment that they want to live in. So questions. I did see, so we have a question about I have a 30-year-old client who needs assisted living and being told that no one will take him based solely on his age. That gets a little bit tricky. You know, there are, and I don't know if Kristen or Jen, if you want to tackle this. Obviously, there are requirements based on nursing homes have requirements, but it's also based on need as well. So that's where you know, talking to the admissions department at the nursing home will be very helpful. Understanding what regulations are you know, being are tied to this situation, because nursing homes, I mean, nursing homes typically admit people 55 and up, and so you know, there's actually care court or case management service coordination actually for people who are transitioning out of nursing homes. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit different atmosphere and system, but talking to the admissions department at the nursing home is going to be your best bet, and having them explain what the workarounds are. Having come from the long-term care industry, I can tell you that there needs to be lots of communication, because nursing homes, again, they think about the nursing homes only supporting people who are 55 and up. Now, we know we have people with intellectual and developmental disabilities that are in nursing homes, but a lot of them meet the age criteria as well. So it has to be an ongoing dialogue to see if they can, there's some private pay options I know for nursing homes. So you may be able to get the person in that way. But you know, feel free to reach out to me, to Kristen Eves, to Jen, and we can help you, guide you through that situation.
Yeah, I'd be interested if you work with a care coordinator, if you ask your care coordinator to submit in a referral for us to kind of dig deeper as to why, you know, OPWDD, you know, services and stuff can't meet the ultimate goal of where you're seeing the need is for your son.
There's another question here that says, what if my loved one thinks they can live on their own, but I'm worried about their safety?
My biggest thing is to start getting the supports within home, try teaching them how to live independently as best as possible, get some community rehab, see if they can navigate transportation by themselves, access food and medicine, as well as cooking the basic meals, cleaning up after themselves, kind of truly learning some at-home skills. Kind of what you would do with like an 18-year-old that is going off to college for the first time. You're going to kind of set them up for the best success. So getting the supports inside the home to best kind of educate them on how to take care of themselves, and then kind of adjusting as it goes. It's not a one size fits all, but kind of playing around while he is home with some services to kind of navigate to living independently.
I think that's where one of these attached tools or assessments could also be helpful too. What are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, and really determine those areas of need and growth.
Yeah, so yeah, you're welcome to download the tools that we have in there. If you have any other questions, please go ahead and type them in the chat box now while we have Mary and Kristen here, and Jen and Jason. And Kristen, when we were planning this week, you had mentioned some situations that you were called into where individuals were ready to, you know, move out of their house or were expressing that need, and they were concerns coming from the care coordinators. What would be some other considerations maybe that we didn't mention today that would help somebody determine if the perfect fit would be their best route, or if they should be looking, you know, where would they start?
Yeah, so I've met with care coordinators. We've had people with, you know, significant mental health on top of IDD and stuff like that, where, and traditionally, and I was guilty of it too, I came from care coordination. You know, I'm going to submit a CRO, that's where we're going, there's housing for them. Really kind of supporting everything holistically, and is the key route here. What supports can we get in place? What financial pieces can kind of help building the team around the person, identifying natural supports, because even during the pandemic, we couldn't do a lot of the services that we did for our individuals without the help from natural supports for individuals. So one is I had an individual with a significant disease that we basically couldn't live independently, ideally, trying to say it without giving too much information, but kind of coming up with a goal plan. What can mom take on? What can dad take on? Having a paid neighbor for somebody late at night in order to call the contact for assistance and help, things like that, or living with a roommate. Mary, you could kind of speak further on family care potentially, but just kind of getting the network behind them and what support services work. It is kind of, unfortunately, a trial and error a little bit. So getting aid services and things in sight, but having the right supports is really kind of key.
Yeah, I mean, with family care, each situation is a unique situation. Even if it's the same provider, a different person moving in is a different situation. You know, there are some providers, just like any other person, there's some providers that are very particular about their house and that kind of thing. We have other providers that are looser on that. So, you know, there's so many things involved in two people living together that, you know, we try to work out, and we spend a lot of time doing that. I think the most important thing with family care is to talk about it with the person to see if that's something they'd be interested in doing, and help them see.
Mary, you cut out again, Mary, sorry. But just kind of to go off that thought, you know, the uniqueness to every situation, you know, something that you want to pay attention to, and person-centered planning, you know, really helps identify what someone wants, you know, in terms of many things in life, and housing just being one of the aspects. But, you know, really talking to that person and their support to understand, you know, really what their needs are, where they want, you know, to be right now, and understanding that that may change in the future. You know, as many of us, I mean, I haven't lived in the same place all my life. You know, I think that, Kristen, you know, you mentioned, you know, something around, you know, that we have to understand that, you know, what we're talking about is just at this point. You know, we want people to be able to experience what they want to experience at this point in their life. This is really what they're focusing on. So we have to also allow for change to occur, and change will occur. So, you know, this just the constant communication, I think, is key. You know, just being able to have that dialogue, the person that's you know, that we're supporting, expressing themselves and sharing their ideas, and letting us know, you know, how we can assist them to meet their goals. Because, you know, as we grow, you know, our needs change, and this is no different. So, but I think treating every situation individually is important. There's no, you know, one size fits all model.
All right.
So with that, I think, I don't know if we have any more. I don't see any more questions. Alan, do you have any on your end?
I do not.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for attending, and sorry for the few issues, technical issues. Hopefully this has been helpful for you. Don't remember to pull out those assessments that are in the handouts, the links, the link to the videos in the chat. If you, yes, okay. If you have any more questions or want to contact Kristen and Nicole Milovich, she is actually the person that Mary oversees at People Inc., and she'll be able to better help you if you have questions. So please reach out to them if you have questions, or reach out to myself or Jan or Alan. We'll definitely get you to where you need to go or provide the information you need. But thank you, and we look forward to you next month to attending our webinar on back to school. It's back to school season already. Can't believe it. End of August, or not end of August, middle of August, but summer's almost over. So thank you, and enjoy your day.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you to our speakers as well. Take care.